It is time to go deeper in God's Word. It's time to engage in truth. Here is Dr. Steve Ford and Pastor John Bornschein.
Welcome back to Engage in Truth, a broadcast of Calvary Fellowship Fountain Valley, located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm Steve Ford, your co-host for today's show. Last episode, we spent some time discussing the current events in the Middle East. This episode, we will continue our discussion of Daniel 2 regarding the rise and fall of the kingdoms of men. Previously, Pastor John elaborated on the statue of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, its relation to subsequent history, and how God oversees it all. Now, if you've missed any of our prior episodes, they are archived on the church's website at calvaryfountain.com. That's calvaryfountain.com, and here's Pastor John to lead us in today's discussion.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Ford. Well, we have had a couple weeks to deviate from our series in Daniel, but it's so hard not to when so much is going on in the Middle East. We had to talk about the issues that were unfolding real time, and it builds the stage toward the fulfillment of prophecy. And we talked about Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38 and really looking at just some of those prophecies in addition to those found in Revelation, amongst many others. And that's what we have to do, is to take a proper exegesis of the Bible. We need to look at all of the prophetic text, and that could take us weeks and months to do that. And we certainly encourage you, our listener, if you are interested in any prophecy guides. We also have books on eschatology, including the book of Revelation, that we can send your way. You just have to reach out to us at calvaryfountain.com. So as we go through the book of Daniel, what we're going to find is that there'll be more understanding the further we get into Daniel of what's going on in the Middle East today. It's an amazing work of God in which we have not only a sequence of events that lead to our understanding of history, but also to understand the spirit in those places, like the Prince of Persia, the Prince of Greece, and other places. It's not referencing men in those cases. It's referencing a demonic force that moves in the kingdoms of men, and then ultimately it's God who steers those. So as we see throughout Daniel, it's not just a work of men and their kingdoms. It's a spiritual battle that's going on in and throughout the Middle East and around the world. And so as we get into deeper chapters, as we look to Daniel chapter 9 and Daniel 11 and others, you're going to see how this all unfolds real time for you, even in the here and now, to have better understanding of what's going on in the Middle East. And so we don't want to delay any further. Let's continue reading in Daniel chapter 2. This is the vision, the dream that was given to Nebuchadnezzar. And Daniel was appointed by God to give understanding of that dream. This is specifically of a giant statue that references various kingdoms that are now historical for us, but also a future tense as we get towards the toes of this statue, looking to a future tense for us, and ultimately will lead into the glorious kingdom of Jesus Christ, his 1,000-year millennial kingdom and beyond. And so, Dr. Ford, if you could take us back to Daniel chapter 2, let's read that text, and once again, we'll do a recap of those kingdoms as we now look and move forward into this kingdom of iron. So, Dr. Ford, please read Daniel chapter 2 for us.
Yeah, it starts with the words of Daniel where he says to Nebuchadnezzar, "You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory, and wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand, and he has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men. but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay.
Powerful text, and that's found in verses 37 to 43 of Daniel chapter 2. So the first image that you note there, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, is a kingdom that's represented by its king. So Babylon, it's Neo-Babylon, mind you, represented by Nebuchadnezzar, as a kingdom that is the image of gold. And that empire existed from 626 to 539 BC. And as I mentioned to you, they were enamored with gold. In fact, it was known as the city of gold. Many historians that followed, even visited Babylon 90 years after the era of Nebuchadnezzar, were still writing of the opulence of the gold that was found in Babylon. And so you'll notice that each of these precious metals, even iron, all of these represent a kingdom, but it's not just because they're picked at random. They actually do represent these kingdoms. The second is of the arms and chest of silver, and that's the Medo-Persian Empire that was 539 to 332 BC. So the arms and chest of silver are representative of this Medo-Persian Empire, which is 539 to 332 BC. And you'll notice that this image of silver is used here not, again, for random use, but rather because silver in Aramaic was money. And they were of heavy taxation. And they had this huge storehouse of silver. And that's how they funded their wars. Then we see the belly and thighs of bronze, and that's representative of the Greek Empire, which was 332 to 164 BC. And later on in Daniel chapter 8, we'll get more about this kingdom. In fact, in Daniel 8, 1 to 27, we read of a vision given to Daniel about a battle between a ram, which represents Persia, and a goat, which represents Greece. And so we'll get even more detail about them. But this Greek Empire is actually imaged with bronze. And that's exactly what history tells us, that their helmets, their breastplates, their shields, their spears, all plated with bronze. And I can only imagine how that looked in the summer, or even at the peak of the sun, as the sun would beat down on these soldiers, and how they just illuminated from this bronze. That would be very intimidating toward an enemy. And so now let's look at the legs of iron. So the Roman Empire is often the one that's cited here by scholars and historians alike, from 27 BC to 476 AD. So Rome is the kingdom described here with two legs of iron. And Rome existed in a divided state. It comprised of the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. So there's a reason why this statue breaks into two legs specifically. It's one, but actually it is two. So Daniel says that the fourth kingdom, verse 40, would be as strong as iron. And by the way, in Daniel's day, iron was believed to be the strongest metal. And Rome was the strongest empire the world has really ever known, quite frankly. At the height of the Neo-Babylon Empire, it only lasted for 70 years. At the height of the Medo-Persian Empire, it lasted for 200 years. The Greek Empire lasted for around 200 years, but the Roman Empire lasted 500 years, reaching its peak around 117 AD with almost 2 million square miles of territory. So while there were portions of the Roman Empire that continued well into the 15th century, its erosion from within and its divided empire in two parts led to its ultimate demise around 1453 AD at the hands of the Ottomans. So Dr. Ford, if you could reread that once more, Daniel chapter 2, verse 40, and maybe just elaborate on that just if you could.
Sure. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others."
Wow.
Well, history tells us this kingdom emerges greater than the others. Not long after Antiochus IV desecrates the temple of God, Rome comes along and marches across the world. Leupold, the Bible scholar, says the Roman legions were noted for their ability to crush all resistance with an iron heel. Now, Robert Culver writes, 2 millennia ago, Rome gave the world the ecumenical unity that the League of Nations and the United Nations organizations have sought to revive in our time. It's probable that the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, the peace of a well-ordered prison with plenty of iron gates, steel doors, trained guards, and high walls, is still the best the world will ever achieve till Jesus comes. Rome became known for its iron legions and its iron rod of law.
So again, we see that each one of these metals represent these kingdoms quite well. We would think that how did Rome represent with iron of all things? Since the others had it as money or in their structures or even in their coatings of their iron, right, or their materials used in warfare, how did Rome represent with iron? And we see that. Mm-hmm. I think even with history unveiling for us some of their structures by way of prison guards and iron law and order and the Pax Romana and so forth seems to indicate the iron that's being revealed there in that particular dream. But something else, this is really what I want to put our attention to on, because something else comes along afterward. And this is really the one that creates great debate, right? We can look at history and go, okay, sure, we can attribute gold to Neo-Babylon. We can attribute even the bronze to the Greeks and so forth, and maybe even the iron to Rome. And these all make sense historically. Yeah. But now we shift gears into something that is still future for us, metatauta, something that's to be unveiled that has not yet come about. But we are seeing the unfolding of things that seem to give us an image of what is to come, and it's happening even right now. Let's look at it again here. Verses 41 to 43 of Daniel chapter 2 says, "Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay." Wow, there's a lot of detail in there that young Daniel is being used by God to reveal to Nebuchadnezzar. And let me remind you that Nebuchadnezzar didn't even remember these details. He knew sort of a blurry image of it, but it's all coming to him with clarity as Daniel is revealing a dream that he had no details of. So to give these kind of details reveals a work of God himself, that all of these who were called to answer the question that could not be answered in all of the kingdom of Neo-Babylon, Daniel is the one that God has chosen. He reveals this to the king, and not just in generalities or in a blurry sense of something. I mean, he's given incredible detail here. Now, the question we have to ask is, what empire is this one? Because if Rome was the kingdom of iron, this next kingdom that follows of these toes, what is this? It's mixed with iron, but it's also of clay. So is this another empire, or does this build on what Rome started? So let me just speculate for a moment. This is where we can have some fun of just speculation. And we can also get into trouble, clearly, when you speculate too far. But Constantine moved the capital of the Roman Empire to Constantinople. That's modern-day Istanbul, Turkey. And he did this around 330 AD. It is also a city on 7 hills, each with a mosque on them today. So we think of Rome and Italy as a city on 7 hills, and in Revelation that matters because we see this beast, this kingdom of the beast, that's also an image of a city on 7 hills. And we think, oh, that's got to be Rome. So there's got to be a rebirth, a new Roman Empire, a Neo-Roman Empire like Neo-Babylon of old. However, it's not the same, and we have to also remember that the capital of Rome was not in Italy. The capital of Rome after 330 AD was in modern Turkey, Istanbul to be specific. This later became the capital of the Ottoman Empire from 1299 to 1922 AD. Wow. Just a little over 100 years ago. In fact, the Ottomans ruled over 32 countries from Austria all the way to North Africa. And Daniel chapter 7, verse 8 calls the Antichrist the little horn, and Istanbul, Turkey means golden horn. Could there be a connection there? Could be. It was Suleiman I, he calls himself the Magnificent, from 1520 to 1566, who blocked up the Eastern Gate in Jerusalem to prevent the Jewish Messiah from coming through it. Now listen, it gets even more here. The color of the armies that kill a third of mankind in Revelation chapter 9, verses 17 to 19 are the same colors previously used by the Ottoman Empire from 1299 to 1877, and then used in various military fashions until 1918 when they were defeated by the British and the Allied forces in World War I. So the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and the area was renamed to the Republic of Turkey in 1923. Okay, so we're talking 102 years ago. Is it possible that the Ottoman Empire that once appeared to die along with its Sultan rulers will be revived once more, as we see in Revelation 13 and chapter 17 and Zechariah 11 verse 17, that out of the city that was once the capital of the Roman Empire, Constantinople, will become this new seat of government, if you will, for what will be this kingdom that Nebuchadnezzar sees? I mean, think about it. Fox News writer Ralph Peters, he was a retired U.S. Army officer. This is what he said. It's coming in Turkey. Convinced that history has no relevance, those same self-deluded Western leaders and diplomats refuse to recognize President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's vision for his Turkey. He dreams not only of a Neo-Ottoman glory, but of a caliphate reborn and led by a Turk. Might anyone venture to guess as to his candidate? Essentially, the Sultan and Caliph both would be back on a Turkish throne. Today, Istanbul. Tomorrow, the world. Turkey was once part of the Assyrian Empire. And as you may recall from our previous studies, it was Nimrod who was previously called, or at least some scholars call, the first Antichrist, who built both Assyria and Babylon. Is it possible that the land of the first Antichrist will also produce the final Antichrist? Again, I'm just going out on speculation here. We'll talk more about all of this when we get to the Assyrian king of the north in our study of Daniel chapter 11. And I won't disregard the theory that the iron feet that are mixed with clay could in fact be a revived Roman Empire. It certainly could be, but the possibility of Rome uniting the Middle East is very remote. However, Turkey, with Iran, Syria, and Saudi Arabia backed by Germany and Russia, now that's a possibility. And it does seem to be happening in our time. In fact, right after what we just saw unfold here in the Middle East with Iran, Russia came to their defense, and so did Turkey. It's Turkey that wants to move down into Syria and take it for itself. It's Turkey that wants to bring order into Lebanon. It's Turkey that's also a part of NATO and trying to influence all of the Middle East under its rule and somehow extend the hand of the olive branch in the hand, if you will, to the Western nations. Turkey is, in fact, a bridge country, if you look at it from Europe into the Middle East. It has a lot of history with the Germans, in fact. The Pew Research Center estimates that by 2050, the number of Muslims worldwide will grow to 2.76 billion, or almost 30% of the world's population, making it the largest religious group in the world. Now listen, I believe in a rapture. I believe in the harpazo, and most dispensationalists do. So with the forthcoming rapture, that percentage will become much larger when suddenly all the Christians are evac'd out of the situation. The largest religion on the face of the earth will be Islam. It is possible then that the clay at the feet of this statue may be symbolic of the turba, and you may be unfamiliar with that. Devout followers of Allah put their face on clay to symbolize their allegiance to Allah. So the Muslim nations, while fragmented, are only united by their hatred of Israel. And they're not alone. Resourced by other nations, including Gog of Magog, this Russia, and others within the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and even NATO, ultimately the single statue of the kingdoms of men and the territories they represent today will all fall before Jesus Christ our Lord. They may even appear in solidarity at some points, but they will not be. This kingdom will be very fragile. It will appear strong, but it will not last against Jesus Christ. So what's going to happen in the world over the next 6 months? What's going to happen? Nobody knows, but I have a document of over 100 predictive statements made in the Quran. And listen to one of these. O Uthman, indeed, Allah may give you a shirt. And if some of the people wish that you take it off, do not take it off for them. That's a prophecy in the Quran, mind you. And they say that that's a predictive warning of man, that Uthman is not to give up his leadership. Here's another one from the Hadith. Women who are clothed yet naked, walking with enticing gait, with something on their heads that look like humps of camels, leaning to one side. That's another one of their prophecies of a future revelation, mind you. I'm saying this to create a point. Buddhism and Hinduism give us nothing either. And what I want you to consider on all this is that as you listen to everything I've told you, the prophecy that Daniel was used by as a man used by God to reveal here from a dream from Nebuchadnezzar has such precision, and it is only the beginning of many more prophecies to come. So as you look to say, who has the answers of what's going to happen in the world over the next 6 months, year, or the years to come, I will tell you the Bible gives the answers that you seek. No man can answer those questions. Only the God who created the entire universe, Yahweh is his name. He's the one who has all the answers. And that's why he is speaking to us even now through Daniel, this text that is over 2,500 years old. It's God who has revealed these things to man. There are 8,362 predictive verses in the Bible, and over 2,000 specific prophecies have been fulfilled. And that's why as we look to these texts, we say, look at the detail that has been given. We worship a God who has made things clear and evidenced to us. And what all that we have to do at this point is believe. Do we believe? You're not going to find your answers in Islam. You're not going to find your answers in Hinduism or Buddhism or any other ism on the face of the earth. You're only going to find your answers through Jesus Christ and his holy word, because he is the word and he has given us himself to reveal these things to man. So we can speculate all day about what Daniel saw with these feet, the toes and the iron mixed with clay. But we do know that we are living in the times before the end, and Jesus Christ is coming soon. And so, Dr. Ford, I know that last time you gave us a word to kind of set us by to end our broadcast. Any final thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I think this is wonderful. And when we've talked before about, as far as the Bible is concerned, that Israel is the epicenter, I do like the point that you've made that it is more likely that maybe something like this would come out of the neighboring countries of Israel as opposed to Rome. So I thought that was very insightful.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Well, I hope that we've at least piqued your curiosities at all-time high. And we love to encourage you to come back and listen again. We're going to continue the study of Daniel chapter 2 and make our way finally into Daniel chapter 3 in these coming weeks here. We're going to examine all of this even closer and hopefully get to some conclusions here that really give us some clarity of what's going on in the world today. And that's what the Bible does. It gives us a roadmap to navigate these things. So again, I hope that you've been excited by this journey. Come learn more at Calvary Fellowship, Fountain Valley Church. This program is a ministry of Calvary Fellowship. And if you'd like to listen to this broadcast and others, go back to calvaryfountain.com and come check us out on a Sunday. Worship services are 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Sunday, and we'd love to see you there. God bless you, my friends. Take care.